John Etkin is the Senior Vice President at Project WET here in Bozeman. And through his work, he helps to educate communities all around the world about the importance of water, clean water, and water conservation. And today he's going to walk us through how to promote positive change in people. So I'm very interested to hear what he has to say. So John, take it away.
Thanks, Amy. I've kept you well in the dark, haven't I?
You have, yeah. I don't know when you're going to...
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for spending a little time on your Friday. It's wonderful to be here. Again, John Etkin, Project WET Foundation, Water Education for Teachers is who we are, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I've been completely inspired by the talks. I've been to 2 of the 3 talks so far, and completely inspired by the speakers. And this, Amy, it's just amazing what you've been able to pull together. One of the things that struck me, however, was that while the speaker so amazing talents in the audience. So what I plan to do today is give you a little bit of idea of what we do, and then using the same kind of methodology, tap into your talents. So at the end of this, there's going to be a little small group work, and I'll be asking for you to basically work through a problem, help us come up with creative messaging to deal with a very local problem, actually. So I hope you're willing to indulge me in that. So Project WET, our mission to reach children, parents, communities, teachers of the world with water education, and we do just that. I'll talk a little bit, just a very little bit about Project WET. Moved here to Bozeman in 1989 from North Dakota, where it started as a groundwater education program. There were some incidences of cancer related to groundwater consumption, drinking water consumption from groundwater, and a lot of that had to do with the surface application of chemicals. And the idea from our founder was to reach the next generation of water users with really important information about how groundwater works. And when you put anything on the surface of the land, there's a good chance that it will eventually, as it rains and et cetera, will reach the groundwater, and the groundwater is your drinking water. So he created some hands-on activities and models to demonstrate that, and it worked so well that some folks at MSU found out about it and brought them over here to Bozeman to do the same for Montana. What happened in 1989 was that it became clear that it could be a much bigger program. There were other states interested besides Montana, so he started a national program. 1995, the big sort of curriculum guide came out, covering not just groundwater, but topics in water A to Z. And at that point, we started the, I was actually there then, believe it or not. We started the process of bringing every state into the network. So that happened probably by 2000, we had all 50 states in the network. 2005, we had grown to the point where we sort of outgrew the MSU nest, as it were, and moved off campus. And it was a great nest to grow up in, but we fledged out. And nowadays, 2017, we're active in all 50 of those states, 77 countries, which is where my focus is. We train 30,000 new educators every year. So we work with teachers, employees, adult community leaders, et cetera, all over the world. And we reach millions of kids. So pretty amazing what we're able to do with a small team. So how we do this is we engage people in hands-on activities. So these hands-on activities are really the core of what we do, and we spend a lot of time finding ways to creatively talk about, for instance, groundwater, which is highly technical, highly complex. This example of hand washing is a good one because I'm actually doing it with you right now. How many people opened the door when they came in with their hand? Does anybody have glitter on their hands? Oh, yeah. 1 or 2 or 3? How many people have glitter on their hands? I do. Or even on your shirt or whatever. So I simply, quote unquote, coughed in my hand, and of course I'm very sick today. I grabbed that door handle, opened it, and left all of those germs on that door handle, both of the door handles actually. In our case, we use glitter, so I just took a little bit of water, put a little glitter on it, put them on the door handles before you guys came in today, just to give you an idea of how easily germs are spread. And we do that activity in slightly different ways where we have whole groups of kids engaging with each other. And we do that hand washing activity and using glitter as germs all over the world. And I just wanted to give you, because there's not much time to go through a full activity with you guys, I just wanted to give you an idea of sort of what we do. And if you're interested or freaked out in any way, after the session, we can teach you how to properly wash your hands. And anybody know what the minimum amount of time that the World Health Organization says you should actually wash your hands for? Ooh, good. 20 seconds. Which seems like it's short until you start doing it or until you ask your kid to actually wash their hands for 20 seconds. And of course you need soap, and we can talk a lot about that too. So what we do to create behavior change is we use activities like this glitter activity, malaria prevention, water purification activities all over the world. And I'll speak for the international side first. So in Africa and in sub-Saharan Africa especially, we've done extensive work. You can see some of the pieces here. This is from the Uganda Ministry of Water, who came in and did the follow-up evaluation. We've worked extensively with the school, this Lake Victoria primary school. It's a great bunch of kids. We supported, with a little bit of money, a rainwater harvesting system as well, because they just didn't have any water there. So believe it or not, hand washing is not a big deal over there. So before we came in, only 5% of the kids washed their hands, after using the toilet. When we left, it was 38%. Hopefully it's gone up since then. It's been a few years. You can see below there's some other ones. And we've worked, primarily in Uganda, we've worked all over the country if you've been there. Down in Latin America, in Brazil, we did an amazing program in the favelas of Rio. And how many people have been to Rio? Couple. When you go to Rio, it's amazing on the beach. It's just what you've seen in the Olympics or whatever. But you look up on the hillsides, it would be like looking up at the Bridgers, except a lot closer. There are slums, basically, built house on top of house on top of house on these hills, and the water from those slums, all the rain, et cetera, literally flushes down right through those super expensive neighborhoods, right into the water where they were having problems, obviously, with the Olympics. And we went in there with a grant to work on trash management, to work on sanitation, hygiene, things, et cetera. And you can see some of the, I'll give you a minute to read that. You can see some of the value that we brought. And that soap one's a big deal. Bringing the awareness of the importance of soap in hand washing is a very big deal. In some cases, finding source to fund soap is a different story, but it worked out great here. And then in the US, we work in all 50 states. By the way, the Montana Project Wet Coordinator is housed at MSU still at the Water Center there, and they do tons of activity around the state, including water quality monitoring and watershed management and lots of education. A lot of these field days that maybe your kids have gone to, ag days and things like that. They do a lot of events supporting the water side of the education. So here we go. We don't have much time today, so I want to get right to it. So your task for the morning is to sell, quote unquote, this solution to a potentially real Bozeman water issue. How many people have lived in Bozeman since 2002? A few. Wow, a lot of newcomers. So believe it or not, back then, water was a huge issue. So the amount of water was a big deal. These are actual headlines from the Chronicle. Going back to 2002, water rationing narrowly averted. 2005 is the top headline, worrying about water use not rising as fast as population, but nearing capacity. I mean, this was 2005. Imagine how the population has changed today. So here we go, 4%, one of the fastest growing cities, not only in the state, but in the country. I heard from someone, and it may be fiction, but that we were supposed to double our population by 2025. Have you guys heard that? Yeah. So all of that is, look, I live on the west side trying to get across town at 5 o'clock. I feel it already. And I grew up in DC, so if I can be impacted by it, it must be bad, right? But the reality is, they're not making any more water up there in our mountains. Like, we get good snow. One of the solutions back then was to build more dams. And I don't know if you guys remember any of this discussion, but it was quite heated here in town, where they were talking about, I think it's Mystic Lake, if you've hiked up there, redoing Mystic Lake and creating a big reservoir out of that, maybe building another Highlight Lake type of reservoir up there in the mountains to provide more water for the city. And frankly, we may get to that discussion again. The way it ended was the people in the city decided to focus on water conservation. So water conservation was the biggest deal, and really that's what has happened. They've saved water in the piping system. They've asked residents to save water. The city has actually contracted with us 3 years ago to build a curriculum that we've now implemented into the Bozeman School District that focuses on water conservation as well as stormwater, understanding how stormwater works here in Bozeman. So here's the proposed solution for the future. So I hope you guys are ready. The new solution, by the way, this is fiction, but in the future it may not be. Water reuse and water recycling. So it's not really tongue-in-cheek, because 5.5 million people in the city-state of Singapore rely solely on recycled water. So when we talk about recycled water, what we're saying is toilet to tap. That means that the wastewater treatment plant out there by Spring Hill, there would be a pipe at the bottom of that would bring the water back up to the water treatment plant, which is up by Nash Road, up there by Sourdough, pump it right back in there, treat it again, and then it would go into the drinking water system. As you can imagine, there is a slight social marketing hurdle with this process, but as you can also imagine, the science is sound. Once water is purified, it's purified. So there it is. Like, you take the impurities out, it's good. Water freezes into ice, it's pure. Water evaporates into the sky, it's pure. Leaves all the impurities behind. So we know how to do it. The hard part is getting people to understand that this water is okay to drink. So that's your challenge. In small groups, choose your size of group, doesn't matter. I have materials to help you. I want you to design creative ways to sell this proposed recycled water solution to Bozeman residents. Feel free to target specific audiences. If you are, I don't know, you work with adults, you work with kids, you have a specialty in drawing, you're a cartoonist, whatever you feel is the best way, or your group feels the best way. Creativity is the key. Sorry, I had to throw this toilet joke in there. And then after we're done, you have about 10 minutes, and then after we're done, let's just hear back from you. And me and some friends will pass out materials for you to help. So get in your groups, introduce yourselves, we'll give you materials. I'm sorry to cut off discussion. It's been amazing to hear the ideas, and I can't wait to hear them in full when you share them to the rest of the group. So is there a group that wants to be first to share their ideas? All right, come on up.
You're going to use this for marketing, Harvey? Is that your point? Could be if our ideas are that good.
Okay, attention to the front, please, students. Hold on, don't go yet. Can you guys all see the front? Oh, thanks. Here we go.
We have the vision thinking about the cycle of life, how you study that when you're in school, you're studying like arrows of water coming down, going to the plants filtering it, coming back into your cycle. So we reverse it going counterclockwise, from like you using the toilet, it's going into a natural state of getting purification, and then going back into your tap, using small droplets rather than gushing waterfall, and then going back down, kind of this nice fluid motion. With the tagline, "You do your business, we'll do ours."
That's awesome. Thank you. That's really great.
Maybe somebody else can take this and run with it, and instead of H2O, flipping it around and going, O, but, in the shape of the toilet seat. 2H, I haven't figured out what the H is exactly yet, but.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Who's next?
We don't have the snazzy logo, so we'll just probably steal that from y'all. But yeah, so we kind of had just kind of a good list of different things that we can go, kind of multi-angle approaches that we can have to it. One incorporates the level of trust I think people need to have in order to even dive in. No one would really want to be the first person to try the cup. So we have to find some sort of celebrity, and we kind of went up on the angle of finding someone by the name of John to go down the road of being the first person to try this new recycled water. And then just big informational campaigns. I think really taking the time to inform the general public of other municipalities that are already doing it and the successes that they've had, the whole process that goes behind it, even getting into the realm of having little miniature versions of what the purification process looks like for access at farmers markets, big community gatherings, that people can actually see the purification and then a clean glass of water come out at the other end. Also get into that same kind of water cycle, kind of feel that, because people like to, have their circular arrows about how things are sustainable and saying, instead of taking this water that we flush down the toilet pretty much out of the water system, we're putting it back in so we can be hydrated, we can drink our water, rivers can stay full, lakes can stay full, things of that nature. And then also understand the needs. Say, without doing this process, we are running short on water with all the that we're experiencing, but incorporating this process, we are good for another 10, 20 years, whatever that information is. So I think it's pretty heavily based on the informational campaign, just to really reaffirm to people that that's the way. Green is the blue green.
So wasn't there discussion of a video? I heard you guys had this whole plan marked out, right?
Yeah, we start off with the doom and gloom, no water for anybody, and then we end with Bambi, and trout fishing and bears and all that stuff.
Excellent. Thank you.
So we decided to focus on a specific target audience market, and we decided to start with the breweries. So our beer that we were going to come up with is called the Double Flush Ale. And we thought we would have some urinal marketing, when you go to the bathroom at the brewery. And then also have a competition among the different breweries to come up with the best recycled water beer.
Yeah. So this week, I think this week is Bozeman Craft Beer Week, so we thought, introduce it during this week of the year, and then the next year, that they have time to create their beer. The other thing we thought about doing was a fun run, so following the path of the, or I guess a bike ride if it's too far for a run, I don't know. But from the wastewater treatment plant to the water treatment plant, and then to one of these breweries. So it's kind of like a pub run, but follow your water. So the opportunities for punning taglines at the end.
Some toilet shaped like peace signs or.
And that'd be pretty easy to get people to drink beer instead of water.
Before it's really, into the city system, like a good way to start with breweries, get people used to the idea of drinking recycled water in their beer before they have to drink it from the tap.
Awesome. That's great.
You have 5 years, you make it.
A little bit more of a simplistic approach. We just basically made a little diagram of one toilet, or the pipe going through the factory, 2 following the pipe, and then it dumps into, this is supposed to be a scene of teeming wildlife, beautiful, beautiful lake with ducks and sunshine and rainbows and all these animals thriving. And then it says, if it's good enough for the ducks, it's good enough for us. Well, you can substitute ducks with whatever you want. Teeny one, whatever you want.
That's great. So I knew there was creativity in the room. Thank you for indulging in the process. I really am very pleased to see the interaction. I'm very pleased that you were willing to take on this challenge. And, you know, while it is hypothetical, there is a fair chance that this will be part of the discussion whenever the water department says, look, we're back in the same situation. We really don't have enough water to support this growing population. So don't be surprised if this is one of the options on the table, because that New York Times article and others, you know, they're using this all over Arizona, all over Texas. A lot of the big cities there and small are using recycled water. Outside of the U.S., tons and tons of municipalities are using recycled water. And it's a really interesting case study, you know, as a sort of, we're sort of the science education side at Project WET, but from the social marketing side, which we sort of dabble in just a little, it's a really interesting concept to think about. And how do you sort of sell a tough concept like this, but so vitally important? Like, it saves money, it obviously provides everyone with water, there's so many benefits, but you have to get over this sort of gag reflex of a hurdle, you know, with a few folks. So anyway, thanks for sharing your experiences, and yes, please.
So does Project WET have any role, take any role in advocacy on the local level, like with the city or county about these issues?
So we're non-advocacy, but we advocate, except that we advocate for everyone understanding the issue. So that's where the water education comes in, and we'll present all sides of an issue. It doesn't sound like anyone's been around in Bozeman for a while, but you Montanans remember, what was it, I-131 or something? A very similar issue. This was in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s. The mining companies, mining tail site, basically tailings from mines, there was a bill in the legislature to push the mixing zones, to make mixing zones of all that mine waste where it enters a stream longer. So instead of being 100 yards downstream, the water had to be good. It was like a mile downstream, the water had to be good, which means the mining companies can put more crap in there, basically. So I got 50 calls, you know, about where do you guys stand on 131? Your Project WET, you should be doing this. I said, you know what, it's, you know, I'm not going to tell you one way or another how to vote, but I can tell you that now people understand mixing zones and sediment and heavy metals and how all this stuff mixes in the environment, and all of the important things are coming out in sort of the press. And you were talking about having John Mayer drink out of a toilet or something like that. So they actually had a commercial where this mining official, you know, the spokesperson, sort of is up there in the mountains, you know, below this mine, which is way up here. You know, she dips her cup in the stream and takes a big drink, you know, and it was kind of a big deal. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. We're interested in people understanding the issue rather than saying, you know, how to vote on an issue.
Would they come to, do you think they would come to you for information or
You know, like the city has, yeah, sure, and you know, we could customize materials, or you know, we have 350 lesson plans now covering all topics, so we can customize one of those or create new, as we did for the city in the past couple of years on stormwater and watersheds. Yeah, yeah, and it's really nice to be able to work local, by the way, as opposed to just around the world. Yes.
What would you say are the most effective methods that you all have stumbled upon, you know, to get the message out and really move people to action? I mean, are there like top 3 strategies that you found to be really impactful?
Help me out, team. Surrounded by Project WET people here, by the way, because it's Friday and really no one wants to work. We were talking about when can we have that double flush ale? Don't they open at 11? So the top 3 strategies. It's a great question. One, because outside of the, you know, you people with kids, you visit your kid's classroom here in Bozeman, and there often is lots of interactivity and small group work. You go outside of the U.S. and you know, there are 100 kids in a classroom in Africa, and there's absolutely no small group work. They're just trying to keep the kids controlled and actually teach them something. So one thing is to encourage, sort of break the boundaries of these, of pedagogy to get them to have the kids interact with each other. Just like this setting, there's an incredible amount of value in doing that. So a lot of our activities are small group work, small brainstorms, whole body activities where they become a drop of water moving through the water cycle rather than us drawing the water cycle on the board. And that I think is the most important thing we do, sort of this interactivity and allowing them to engage with each other. Second strategy is, I would say, and you guys chime in wherever you want, second strategy is we actually don't come in, to your point, we don't come in and say this is how you should think or this is how, what you should do. We say, here's the big issue, this is complicated, groundwater or recycled water, this is complicated stuff, right? But here's the whole big picture, you choose the action to take, and I think that also is valuable. And go ahead, Julia.
I was just going to, sorry if I may, there's been a lot of research out there that shows actually that people learn and tend to retain information by having fun. And so that's one of the things that Project Life does. Our activities are geared for teachers and children to have fun doing them. So we thought that's a really, really great way for people to retain information. And we talked about that in our group a little bit too, that if you come across with something that's funny and captures people, makes them laugh, they might remember it a little bit better. So that's one of Project Life's big strategies, is to make sure people are having fun when learning.
We'll call that the third one, because I know obviously we're getting late. People need to go. Anything else? Any other comments or things you want to share?
I had a question. It's like kind of micro systems you can put in our homes. Is that being encouraged at all? Is that even?
Well, there's especially outside of the U.S., it's really common.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are whole countries that use gray water systems, and I have a friend over in Livingston who put in his own gray water system so he doesn't have to do all that. It's sort of a sub-discussion, and every time this water conservation thing comes up, oftentimes what happens is the sort of underlying discussion is, some of it is around this gray water system, which basically means the water that goes in your sinks not your toilet, but your sinks goes into a holding tank that's called gray water, and then that's pushed back into your toilet to flush your toilets. So it makes great sense. I was mentioning to this group, I mean, we have chlorinated water, and Bozeman's water is highly chlorinated, as you probably know, mainly because it comes out of a surface water system, and because we're playing and our dogs are playing and we're playing in Highlight Lake, the potential for contamination is high, so they add a lot of chlorine. And it comes out in your tap, right? So we put this chlorinated water on our lawns. The green from the lawn gets stripped out by this chlorine. We put more fertilizer on there. We put more water on. It strips more out. We put more fertilizer on. It's kind of a bad cycle. But if we use gray water for our lawns, for example, then we wouldn't have that issue. So, it's a small way. So to answer your question, it is a sidebar discussion. It's not priority discussion, unfortunately, in the U.S., and I couldn't tell you why. But it makes a lot more sense to do something like that. I think because of the infrastructure. That's usually what I hear is, infrastructure's already in place. The pipes in New York City are from the turn of the 1900s. How would we replace all that, to be gray water, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone. And if you're interested in more in what we do, there's our website, and contact me, and I'll put you in touch with whoever you need.